Welcome to our Human Resources application. What we're going to talk about today is how IronSpeed Designer affects application generation, or how the schema design affects application generation. What is a human resources application, and then building the human resources application. To get the most out of IronSpeed Designer, prepare your database first. We'll have that in letters about 5 times the size because that's what you need to do. IronSpeed Designer uses database schema to create pages. The page layout and functionality are driven by the schema. So if you don't have it in your database, it isn't going to be in your application. Also, a properly designed schema is easily extendable and easy for you to extend when your application needs expansion, which it almost certainly will. You don't need any particular knowledge of ASPX or .NET in order to use IronSpeed Designer. So let's talk about our schema, actually. And instead of talking about just the slides, let's look at the schema of the database we'll be using today. This is a database called HR1. It comes in either Access or SQL Server Compact Edition or SQL Server, all of which will be distributed to you later today. It contains an employees section and associated fields, and it contains job history, jobs, job offers, applications, and then job openings and associated fields for the applications and for the jobs themselves. We may refer back to this from time to time, but let's right now you'll notice there are many relationships shown in the database. It's important that you have your primary keys and foreign keys all defined so that the relationships are clear so that IronSpeed Designer can use them to make your pages. Use separate lookup tables, a well-known principle that makes it very easy for you to extend your database and to keep it up to date. And for performance, be sure to index all foreign keys, primary keys, any fields you search by or filter by. The full text index is not supported. And actually, that's an old part of the slide. In the new IronSpeed Designer, it does support full text indexes, and so you can even take advantage of that in SQL Server only. One of the things that makes your application easier to comprehend is your naming conventions. Use meaningful names in your fields and tables. They're used by IronSpeed Designer to create labels. Use camel case because Designer parses names based on capitalization. And try and use a consistent application of singular and plural so that your application names come out consistent. Field data types are very important because using the correct data type helps Designer generate the correct controls. For image types, use image rather than binary, and for money, use decimal. In other words, be as specific as you can. When you have complex joins, or when you have joins in your data, when you need to tie data together, it's best to use your database and create views in the database whenever possible. IronSpeed Designer is not a query construction tool. You can tie different related tables together on a page, but IronSpeed Designer, to use your data joined in a single view, really needs that separate view, and you should create that in the database. Of course, be sure that your primary keys are declared. We have a virtual primary key wizard available in IronSpeed Designer, so if you have some view that you created that doesn't have a primary key, you can give it one as long as it has the fields capable of serving as a primary key, of course. The same thing with your foreign keys. Foreign keys are essential to exposing the relationships in the data. If you happen to be missing one that wasn't declared in the database, make sure that you use our virtual foreign key wizard to declare it in IronSpeed Designer. And do that as early as possible, because when IronSpeed builds pages from those tables or views, you won't be able to see any relationships unless they're actually declared. So put your virtual foreign keys and virtual primary keys in as soon as possible. Here's a picture of our virtual primary foreign key wizard. Now let's talk about, so that's it for the database, and you saw the database we'll be using. What is the Human Resources Management application? It's the management of an organization's employees. We all pretty much, I think, know that. What are the modules you might have in a HR management? It's, well, you're worried about personnel administration. You're worried about recruiting. In our case, that relates to employees and applications. You're worried about compensation, payroll, vacation time, and you're worried about time management, the work time, the time cards for the employees. You're also worried about benefits administration, insurance, pensions, etc. And this, of course, the human resources application will cross over with your accounting system. In personnel administration, you maintain a list of employees, manage employee data, keep track of the position and stature or places in the company and the responsibilities, and keep track of employment history and skills. For recruitment, we have to have a list of candidates, we have to have a list of job openings and job offers. In compensation, you worry about calculating pay based on time and rates, deductions, withdrawals from your vacation account, checks in a timely manner, and, of course, all of human resources is fraught with regulations that you have to take care of, which is why these days almost everyone has some sort of human resources specialist. In your time management, you're worried about keeping track of work hours, vacation hours, overtime, and weekends. And in benefits, you're worried about medical insurance, about retirement, disability, and profit sharing. Our model HR application just includes a couple of those things. It's not complete, or we'd be here all day working on it and still wouldn't be finished. But we're going to try and do a decent job of showing you the idea of how to put it together in just this hour. Ours includes personnel administration, it includes recruitment, and it includes time management, which you saw in our database schema, employees, applications, and the time management, which is time off, overtime, etc. The building elements of our applications, of course, start, as I said, most important with the database and the database schema. We have the database prepared, so then we're going to need to add audit trails to our application. For that, we'll use the Batchmeister wizard in IronSpeed Designer. We're going to add security to our application. You can't have an HR application without security. And we're going to configure our menus to make the navigation seem more logical and match what we're trying to present to people. And throughout all of this, I'll be using, what we're going to do is talk about where we're going. We're almost doing that. We're almost done with that now. And then we're going to talk about, then we're actually going to sit down and work on the application. I expect some questions from you at the end, so please get them ready, put them in any time, and Jill will queue them up for me as we get to the end and can address all the questions. And the database schema, the tables we have, really there's 4 sections. There's the personnel tables, the employees, jobs, job history. There's the recruitment section, which is applications, job openings, job offers, resumes. And there's time management, overtime and time off, and lookup tables for departments, positions, roles, and skills. How are we going to go about building our application? First, we'll select, we'll select just a single table and run through creating a page with that single table. The purpose for that is to prepare the whole application, get the framework of the application, and particularly the application folder. Because then, since we're using an embedded database, which would not be in a time-shared application where everybody else is using it, but here we're using an embedded database, and so we'll be moving the database into the application itself. And then applying the Batchmeister wizard, which really needs to be done before the creation of pages. But of course, you can't do it before the creation of pages until you have the framework of an application. So, and then when we get all that, and then we're going to create all our pages and then apply the security wizard. Once we have that, we have only one thing missing, the usability. What we need to do is clean out the unnecessary pages, clean up the interface, and here's where most of your work will go, where all your time will go. You can get the framework relatively quickly, which we'll do today. We'll do a few examples of enhancing the application and putting in some functionality, and then it's up to you to decide how clean you want your application and what needs to be removed. But that's relatively easy compared to all the other jobs. So some tips and tricks on making an application. You can add hyperlinks to drill down on count. If you put a count field of something in your application, then you can change that to be a formula where the formula exposes the count value and it creates a hyperlink to what you want to link to. So you can figure out this formula and try it out yourself. Later you'll find out it works very well and is an excellent use of the formula section. You'll need to add audit trails where you have fields in your tables. In our case, we have created on, created by, updated on, and updated by, which are used to keep track of who's hitting a table and when. We set up the audit in the data access layer by the Batchmeister wizard, and to do that, then we have to tell the application that we don't want to see those in our page. Those generally we don't want to see those fields in our pages. So as I said, we'll start out by creating pages for one table, see what you want to change, adjust the application generation options, which we'll also do. And once our setup is complete and our planning is complete, then we'll create all the pages we want. To add detailed child tables to record below in tab first, drop them inside the record and cut and paste. Now, the purpose for that is to establish the linking between the child table and the record. IronSpeed Designer doesn't know if you drop something separately on a page from another control, it doesn't know it's needed to be linked to that control. So when you want to link one control to another, and they do have a natural linkage that IronSpeed Designer can determine, then be sure and drop the one inside the other and then move them outside. So now we're going to go about creating our application. And when we get finished, remember, put in your questions, and we'll take a look at what we can tell you more about what's going on. Okay? We'll start. I have some application notes which explain exactly what it is we're going to be doing, and so we'll go about doing it. Now, we're going to be using IronSpeed Designer version 9.2 for this, our current version. First, we're going to set the options for the pages to create to make sure that we're creating only the right pages in IronSpeed Designer. Then we're going to set the number of detail pages acceptable for an application for child tables, and we'll set the fields to exclude, which I said, remember, we're using some audit trail fields. We'll set the fields to exclude to those that we're using. Okay, let's get started here. And the first thing, because of my old webinar screen over here, we'll make Designer a little shorter. I have to make good use of the pinning and unpinning of the toolbox so that we can have some room to work. We'll start out by creating an application. And the first thing, remember I said, once is we want to check the options. Here we want to look at the new page and chart options, because in the web page options, we want to make sure that the pages to create will specify just the pages we want. And that's, we want an add record page, an edit record page, and we want a group by table page, and the show record page. In addition, and we aren't going to be producing any workflow pages, which you could also add if you have a need for them, but you can add, once we get our core application, you can add pages to it easily, running the application wizard to just produce that page or a few pages you want. In the mobile page options, we want to see all the pages so that our pages will be accessible by a mobile device. Now in the, let's see, new page options, common page options, here we go, general application options. In the web page options, we have, where did I lose that? In the web page options, we have data entry, forms and reports, charts, workflow. I always lose this option, and because there is in here an option for finding or for how many fields you want in a detail table when you put detail tables and in your tabs. And when it's normally set at 3, and for our purposes that won't be enough. So let's see if we get fields to exclude is wrong. Mobile page options, web page options. Okay. Pages to create, we know it's not there. Data entry, forms, reports, charts, SharePoint, workflow. I think I'm losing this mobile page options, common page options. Web page options, here we go. The page, large list, popper. Page controls, large list selector, not there. Mobile text controls. And so I'm going to have to, rich text editor. In my notes, it says it's in number of pages, number of detail page in page options all. So where is my page options all? As you can see, in page options, mobile page options, common page options, inside modern row, maximum name width fields. Well, we also want fields to exclude. Remember, I talked about excluding those fields, so let's take the fields that we want to exclude, which are here. and include them in the fields to exclude in our application generation options so that we won't be creating fields for them on the pages when we don't need them. Now, common page options and new page, pages to create. Where is my page? Mobile page options. We know it's not in the mobile page options. It's in the web page options, but it's in web page options, mobile pages, charts, web text controls, mobile pages, search, security. Well, I'm having a hard time locating it now, and that will happen because all of the application options, the many we have, sometimes they don't just pop out at you. And so we may have to fix that as we go along with our application. But for now, let's go on and remember that there is this detail pages options, which allow you to choose the number of detail pages you'll have, detail panels you'll have. We'll create a single record, and let's go on from here. Set those. Go on to choose our style. Since the example I gave you is created in the classic style, we'll go ahead and use the classic style of MANA. And then we'll choose our database. Now we'll be using the SQL Server CE database, which we have prepared. And it is in our training section in 9.2 in HR, whoops, not there, sorry. In the databases for HR, it's HR1. It's a Windows SQL CE 3.5 database. We'll use that database, and that will require full trust settings for our application, which is fine here. That may be a factor for you, in which case you will need to decide what kind of application to use. Although, actually, when you prepare a full-blown HR database, you'll be using probably SQL Server or Oracle or one of the large databases that you can share in a widely shared environment. Okay, we'll start with just a single page. So we're going to turn off all the pages for this except for a basic table page. And we're going to start by creating just one page, because right now we don't have a framework for our application. We don't have the folder or anything else. So let's do that. Go to the end. It's going to be created in training, and it'll be called My App 1. Now, actually, what I want to do is change its name to My HR 1. We'll just prepare a website. You could also choose a web application, but this is going to be simple and easy to demonstrate, so we're going to use a website, and you could also use either of the languages. We'll use Visual Basic, we'll use the 3.5 framework, and we'll put our statement generation in line. It shows that we're going to create just a single page, and we'll let IronSpeed Designer now go about creating the application. So when we finish here, we'll have the framework of an application in here. Here we go. And it will start running, but that doesn't matter to me right now. What I'm worried about is in our training section, you notice we have here. Let's go to design mode, stay in design mode in the application. Go back to our training folder and see that we now have our My HR1 application. And what we're going to do is I'm going to copy the database folder into the MyHR1. So now, and we'll make the name shorter so I can refer to it more easily. Inside the database, the only database we need, it has all three forms of database, but I don't need anything except the Windows CE database, so I'm going to go ahead and delete the other ones that are in here because we don't need them. And we go back. Now we can go to our application, look at our web config file, and in our connection string, which had this whole long path, well, we don't need that anymore. The database path is now just going to be a relative path to the application itself, which is going to be in the DB folder. We'll have the database. And save that. Come back to our page. And just to be sure that we're still hooked up, let's just scan our database and make sure that we are indeed connected. So we've moved our database into our application. And let's see the next step here. We created our single folder. We moved the database in. And we'll now use the Batchmeister to configure the audit fields. The reason we made these fields excluded, we'll go to the Batchmeister wizard in the Tools menu. And the Batchmeister wizard allows us to configure global where clauses and things in the database, in the application itself. What we're going to use is we're going to use created by, updated by, created on, updated on, and updated by as audit fields. So we go and check each one. Unless these items are checked, there are some items that are in here, and we're going to be setting the date in the updated fields to today, and we're going to be setting the created on to the user ID. This is a built-in security function, so the logged in user ID will be recorded in the created by and updated by fields. Okay. Now, of course, you can add anything you want by going to the add and add another formula. We don't need to do that today because these are already built in since they're very commonly used. We can also look at validation formulas, which we don't have any today, and formulas for using multi-tenant applications. We're finished, and now RNSpeed Designer will go through and add the necessary code into the, I think it's actually in the business layer, not the data layer, where the Batchmeister wizard formulas are used. And so we've added the Batchmeister wizard, and now we're ready to generate the application itself, except for I'm going to take one more crack at why I didn't see the application generation option. And so, of course, it's not in menus and related fields, is it? Just to be sure. Classic menus. No. So we're looking at the new page and chart options, yes. And it's generally not in the master pages. In the common page options, it would be modern table field, modern sort length, maximum name width. This is an option which you might want to be aware of. You have very long names. We would ordinarily restrict the names for, basically for web design, to make sure that one thing doesn't skew off a whole web design. So we limit the maximum name width. And if you don't know about that, then you could be curious about why all of a sudden your names aren't coming out in complete length as you want it. So beware that application option is there. mobile application options is in the web page options. In the pages to create, it isn't there, but it's in data entry forms, reports. Can't be because it's got to be in. No, I am just not gallery enhanced with detail below. In the page options, here it is. It's in each type of table that you'll be creating, there are page options. And when there are detail pages included in the page generation, you can select how many tabs you'd like. Well, we aren't going to restrict them today, so we're going to use all tabs. And set that option also. Now that we're ready to go ahead and prepare all of the pages, the application table we prepared here was just to set up the framework, so we'll go ahead and delete it. We don't need it anymore. We'll end up with an empty application framework, and we'll go ahead and add all the pages we want. So back comes the app wizard, back to our pages, and all we have to do here is select all of the tables, because we're going to be using them all, except for sysdiagrams, which is a database or a database table for our database diagram, which we don't want to include in our application. And you notice the default set of pages is already selected, so all we have to do, I will step through the steps one at a time. Just we don't need to make this a multilingual application, and our same application settings will apply that we've already selected. So we'll go ahead, we're ready to finish and look at all the pages that we'll be creating. And now IronSpeed Designer will do the real work of creating pages, all the pages, 8 pages for each table. And when it gets finished, we'll have the layout for our entire application. We won't yet have the code behind because I haven't set it up to also build the code behind when we exit from the application wizard. I like to choose myself when I do that. Of course, if we go ahead and run the application, then we will build it because they have to be built. But we'll start out with, and you notice it takes a little while to prepare all of the pages because we're doing quite a few. Let's get rid of the old application which is running here. Now you're running, notice it's running in the development server. It's not running on IIS here. But deployment is a separate issue. And so you'll notice now it comes up and starts on the first table that we looked at, the applications, and you'll notice the each of the records has its child tables in tabs below it. And this, so let's take a look at the next step in developing our application. Remove the initial page, build all pages. Use the security wizard to secure all pages. We're going to use the login, the password, ID, email, and employee roles. So we'll go to our application. We'll just leave this running in the browser. We can refer to it and get it out from under our webinar step. Go back to our application, go back to our tools and the security wizard now. Apply the security wizard. We're going to be using database table security. The employee table has all the information we need to secure the application. And we're going to be adding roles to it, a roles table. The table we're using is, as I said, employees. And there is actually a login field, so we'll use the login field, the password field, the ID of the employee's record as their ID, and we'll go ahead and use the email address field so that we can have a link for the employee on the login page asking to have your login information emailed to you if you've forgotten it. Now in our roles, we're going to use the employee roles table, which has a role ID and employee ID matched together so that in a many-to-many so that an employee can have many different roles. To secure the pages, though, we're just going to use signed-in users for now. And we're going to go ahead and select all the pages. And go ahead, go to the end, see that we're ready, and add security to the application. And while it's adding security, let's take a look at our application notes. We removed the initial pages, we built the pages, we've added, we've configured the menu. Now we've just added security, and so we'll be wanting to configure the menus. Let's go to our application. Still working because it's preparing all the code behind and security information. So now we have security information. Let's go actually look at our application. Where is my application in my browser? Let's refresh it so that we get the current application. Come along, guys. Here we have our current application. Let's sign in. And actually, we're going to use Lance. And so now we're signed in. Let's go to another another table. We can sign out. I successfully signed out. And so now, oh, I know what I did. I made my classic setup security but forget to set up security mistake, which I'll show you here just a second. We went to security. Surprise, some of you out there watching didn't catch me on this one. We go to the security wizard. We have our items selected. We have everything selected. We go to selecting the pages. We select signed in users. And you know, I still have permissions for everyone here. I went ahead and selected all the pages, but didn't complete it by actually setting the security, which we'll do now. So now we can finish and let it go back through and build the security into the pages. Sorry about that, but I guess sometimes mistakes are good because they'll keep you from making the same one when you try it. Okay. We've configured our menus. That's the next step, configuring the menus, and then we'll customize the show employee. And we're getting close to the end of what we're going to be doing and looking for questions from you. The next section that follows is a few customizations we'll be making to the pages that are there. And we'll just about have our application. Then it'll be ready for cleanup. And that's a long and involved process of deciding exactly what it is you need, what it is you want. But you'll have all the techniques you need to make your application do what you want. So let's go back to our application now. When we refresh it, we should see what I expect, which is it's on the applications page. But since we're not signed in, it will ask us to sign in. Okay, Now we can sign in. And there we have it. So let's sign out. So we go back to our sign-in pages. Remember, we said by including an email address, you can have the employees get their password name sent to them. However, it requires some more configuration because you either it uses a Google Captcha control, which you have to go to Google and sign up for and then configure, or you have to take the controls out so that they're not used and then customize the code so that it doesn't refer to the Captcha control for validation. Here right now we have no configuration, and so you can't ask to send any password information because you'll get an error. But the framework is there for you to use it. Let's go back to sign in. At least leave this signed in here. And the other thing we have to do is clean up our menus. We've got way too many menus, and so let's just look at the process of cleaning up the menus. We go down to our menu panels, right-click, and choose Configure. For this, I think I want to make the employees first, actually, and then the applications. But I also want to make a separate menu item. Let's see how that looks. Bullet 1 and Bullet 2, so this one got put in with the wrong graphic, so we'll just make this Bullet 1. And we're going to call this Configure. And the description is configuration pages. Okay, well, if I could type, I'd be dangerous, but that's okay. Now, so we've made ourselves a new menu, but we have things we want to put in there. What I'd like to put in there is all these auxiliary menus for configuring it. So let's look at the employee roles. I want to put the items from this top-level menu down into this menu. Same thing for the employee skills. Same thing for the roles. And the skills. So we can take all of these menus, insert them into our configuration menu, and hide them when we don't need them. So now we have our configuration menu prepared. Let's get rid of the things we don't need, so we can just hit the delete key and delete each of the menu items we don't need. And we'll also, just for decoration here, insert a separator. And we'll insert one down here. Now we've updated our menu. Let's go back to our application, see the new application. And so now our menus are looking a little more organized. Okay, now we're going to be looking at customizing a few things. We did move the menus around. We're going to take our Show Employee page. Let's just go to our Employees page. And we have a page for Show Employees. So, And if we look at it in live preview, I'm not going to disable security. Maybe I should have disabled security, in which case this, I think, let's cancel this, go out of live preview. I can either go to my web config, which probably should do, it's just as easy as anything else. If I go to my web config file and then look for my security disabled, which is now false, and if I change that to true, back to my employees and back to my live preview, and now when I preview it, I'll get the page and I won't be bothered with security. So what we're going to do on this page is add some fields below here to show employment or time calculations. And we have in particular, let's see, I need my toolbox and I don't need my properties. So let's go back to get the toolbox and go to my controls, because we're going to be adding a bunch of literals to use as labels. Actually, we'll be adding 4 fields. Now I have the names for these in here, so we don't have to sit and type forever. So let's get some names and change the names of the fields. And I think you can see that as things go, rearranging and adding things to your pages is really easy, but it's still, you have to plan for it, and you have to decide what it is you need. And the last field is going to be time off available. So now that we've put in our labels, there's the last one. So we have the total time off. Then we're going to have the total overtime. This is the total time off earned. This is the total time off earned down here. This is the total time off you've had. You'll have records in our database, and so what we'll want here is a count field. So we're going to go over to our fields and counts. We're going to get a count of, there we go, labels, fields, and counts. What we haven't done, sorry, not a count. We don't want a count, we want a sum. That's what's wrong. Because we need a sum of, in this case, the time off hours here, hours summed for each ID. It shows you what linkage will be established between tables, and that's it. So now we have our time off field, and we'll also need an overtime hours. Shows you the join that's used, which you can change if you need to, but of course we didn't need to change it for this. We're going to need literal for our time off earned. And I think this has a different name, at least for the things that I have, and so we'll have total time off earned is the name we'll be using for it. And the last thing is time off available. And so we'll need a literal for that. Let me get the name, see what we'll call it here. Time off available. Sorry about that. Here. Rename it to time off available. Oh, I wish I could type available. Okay, now we have our fields. Of course, we have values for these, but we don't have any values for this, for the time off earned, and we don't have any time off available. Well, time off available can be easily calculated with a formula. I have the formula set down here so that we can use it. It's right here. So let's make it easy. I'm going to copy the formula, then we'll interesting. Let me get this out from under, make sure that I didn't get it all. I figured that would happen. And there's nothing worse than having a half-complete formula. So to add this formula to our field so that it displays the value, all I needed to do is type in the formula. Well, type in the formula, just type in what we've already done. Now, just for kicks, suppose we were continuing, you can see how you would use the formula. We'd be looking for a UI control. We'll be looking for, oops, what am I looking for here? I'm looking for the employee's record control total time off earned text, for instance, right here. So we'd be looking for a UI control total time off earned, and then we'll be taking that control, highlighting it, and going to a function, and we'll be using a parsing function. We'd use parse decimal, and that's how the formula here is constructed. Okay, we've got our formula for that value, and the only thing left now is a formula for the time off earned. Time off earned is a little different. We have to do some calculations. So let's go ahead and build this page so that we can have the formulas, the functions to customize. Now I can take my function. I have the function already defined here, and I'm going to cut it and paste it into the code. Let me show you how I like to use this, which is in our application. I decide I want to customize this function. You don't get any of the formatting or any IntelliSense or anything else that you get in Visual Studio. So I like to do it in Visual Studio. So all you have to do is add some change to the code level. And when I do that and save it, then the function will be prepared and your override function will be there in your code. So now all we have to do is go to Visual Studio, which we're going to do. And Visual Studio will open up in the right place so that, let's see, I need to, here we go, I need to bring it in, again, bring it over so it's out of the way of our webinar. In our controls, we'll be looking for the function. And here's the function we've added and we want to customize. So all I have to do, I could now proceed to, let's see, first of all, let's just cut the whole thing out of here because the formatting is terrible, so let's cut it out, paste it back in, and we'll get good formatting. And we'll also go to our source here, copy the function, or the contents of it, go back to our Visual Studio, and paste it in. And now, only one thing I don't like is we need a blank line there. We're almost there, except I notice I've got an error here. It's trying to interpret start date. That's the job record here. JH is what is it? Job history is a job history record. The start date of your job history record is trying to interpret it as a date, and it's a string right now. It says it's a string. So what we haven't done yet is we have to go to our application. Let's see, first, important part when using Visual Studio, whenever you make any changes, make sure that all your changes are saved before you go back to Iron Speed Designer. Otherwise, you won't see them. In Iron Speed Designer, you must reload them. The problem we're having is in the job history record. Job history record, we have a start date, and its validation type is string. And for it to be treated as a date, what we'd like to do is make its validation type date. Same thing in the end date. So we make the date here, the validation type date. And let's go, now let's rebuild our whole application. So rebuild all. I want to do that to make sure everything's built and that all the changes are incorporated in the pages, because now when we go to Visual Studio, we should see that the data layer is changed and treats that field as a date. And so let's see if that happens. Okay, let's go back to our Visual Studio. And you'll notice now we have no problem here. The date is interpreted as a date. So I don't believe we have any errors, but just to be sure, we'll go ahead and build the website. And if we come up with no compile errors at the end, we'll be ready to try it out. And while we're waiting for that to build, we'll look at so we changed the validation types to allow the thing to compile. And we're going to be adding a view button to the employee table row. Let's see where we go. It's Visual Studio is ready. We got a successful compile. Everything is saved now after we've compiled, and we're ready to run. So let's go back to our pages, back to our Show Employees page. Let's just preview the page and see what we've got. As the page builds, time flies when you're having fun. We spent an hour, and we're just about done with this application. I see a question. Remember, if you've got any questions, now's the time. So now we have, made a slight error, didn't put the label, the literals, but that's okay. We can easily correct that. And let's go back and look at the properties. And go to our, where's the properties? Oops, I don't want this. I want the properties. If we look at the label, here's the text that has to be changed. And this is total time off. And this one is total overtime. And this one is total time off earned. Why don't I just copy this? And we'll make this one total time off earned. Oh, time off earned. There we go. And final one, time off available. And now with our labels in place, we should be good to preview it. You notice we have time off calculations being performed. And so we have it in our show employees record. The only problem is that if we try and find the show employees record, we go to the show employees group by here, group by page, and we just look at what that is. And we'll see there's no place here to have, we can edit the record, but there's no place to show the record. So what we need to do is go to the group by table, go to design mode. Let's look at the fields, the employee buttons, not the right ones. Did I get the right ones? Fields. Here we go. We have the collapse row button, the row edit button. We're going to need another button here for viewing, so we'll insert a column on the left. Notice that if we look at this cell, we see it has a non-breaking space in it. So we'll just take that cell, make sure that this one also has a non-breaking space in it. Just copy the content so that the formula is the same. And here we're going to need a button. So let's go to our buttons. Oops, buttons. And what we need is a view record button. Here we go. While we're doing that, and we can go back, preview the page. And sometimes when you preview, when you put in buttons, you'll have to configure them. Let's see if we have to configure this one by trying it out, or whether it will establish the linkage to the proper page. Should get the linkage to the right page because the page is already there and created, but we'll see. The good thing about preview and trying out what you have. And so we'll go and we get the employees page. So we've got our application. It's now, we've changed the page, and now all that's left is for you to go through and clean up everything, make sure that you're showing what you want to show, and we've got our HR application. And one question I have here is from Jim, who says, can you describe how security setup would be different in a multi-tenant environment? The thing about a multi-tenant environment is that every record is associated with one of the entities in your database, like a company or a person. And each company or person would only see the records associated with them. To do that, we have the Batchmeister wizard available to, and a sample formula is in there for the kind of query that you'll need. What you need is, in each record that you want to limit, you have to have the ID of the company or employee that you belong to. And that's all there is to it, really. If every record is identified as belonging to a particular company or employee, then you can establish a global where clause in the Batchmeister wizard, which limits what any logged-in person can see to only their records, and that's all there is to it. So that's how you do a multi-tenant application. Okay, let me get back to our slides. We haven't done anything. We got questions, and that's it for today, people. Thank you very much, and hope you got something out of this. You should receive the material by email in about 4 hours, and we'll see how it goes. Take a look at it and try it out yourselves. And thanks for coming. We'll see you again next time around.